So by the end of this speech, I hope to change your opinion, not really change your opinion, but kind of get you to think more about the legalization of drugs. According to Francisco de Assis from the Addictions Journal, the debate over drug legalization appears frequently in the media as a potential solution to issues such as drug trafficking and other problems related to drug use. Throughout the years, we have seen numerous drug cartels, an increase in violence due to obtaining illicit drugs, and crimes because of illicit drug use. Imagine a world where we could see less of this. Seeing drug cartels gone, violence letting up because individuals are able to obtain these drugs without complications, and drug crimes going down because of legalizing illicit drugs. I've done a good amount of research on the legalization of drugs. And as a proponent, the solution is not to let people have unrestricted access to these illicit drugs, but to create a system where the government would be able to regulate these drugs. The legalization of drugs would have government regulation to it, but it would benefit in weakening the drug cartels, decreasing drug crime, and we could tax it. In the process of understanding this argument, let's first look at how illicit drugs allow for drug cartels to stay in business. These drug cartels can be found mostly in Mexico, creating a good profit off the drugs they sell. According to the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, Mexican drug cartels make at least 60% of their revenues from selling marijuana in the United States. The reason for this is because they are seeing an opportunity in these illicit drugs to make money. Even though there are laws out there prohibiting these drugs, it still isn't enough to stop these drug cartels from selling them. Regardless of the laws or not, a black market for these drugs continue to thrive. Prohibition of illicit drugs causes these drug cartels to become more powerful. According to Johnson from Organized Crime, more than 28,000 people have been killed in prohibition-fueled violence, and the cartels are more powerful than ever, financed primarily by marijuana sales. Drug cartels are destroying environmental resources in order to grow and sell marijuana illegally. The destruction of protected parklands is a result of this. Legalizing and regulating marijuana, along with other illicit drugs, would help to stop this problem. Regulating these drugs will be beneficial to both the U.S. and Mexico due to weakening the drug cartels. Now let's turn our attention to the violence behind trying to obtain illicit drugs, which lead to drug crime. There are 3 associated crimes dealing with illicit drugs, and they include systemic crimes, economic crimes, and psychopharmacological crimes. Systemic crimes are disputes that happen mostly through violence when an illegal drug transaction goes wrong, because they aren't able to go to the court with it. According to Huzak from the article Legalizing Drugs, the systemic crimes associated with illicit drugs include highly publicized cases of murder due to disputes involving illegal drug transactions. During the alcohol prohibition era, black markets were very violent. If existing drugs are enforced, this would be an opportunity for the black markets to make more profit, which in return can cause for increase in violence, leading to more systemic crimes. Systemic crime is the most common in illicit drug violence. Legalizing drugs would decrease the systematic crimes. It's important to understand that these crimes are not necessarily due to the drugs themselves, but because drug use is illegal. Economic crimes are the crimes people commit to obtain money in order to buy these drugs. Demand for illicit drugs are high, and so is the price. Because of that, drug users will do everything in their power to get the money they need. With that being said, property offense crimes are a result of it. Most of the models for decriminalized market show that illicit drugs would be far less expensive if they were legalized. According to Hughes Act from the article Legalizing Drugs, some academics have estimated that heroin could be lawfully bought and sold at about 2% of its current black market price. Compare these drug users to individuals who buy alcohol and tobacco. Rarely do you ever see them trying to steal in order to buy their drugs. Alcohol and tobacco effects are not less powerful than illicit drug effects. It's because individuals are easily able to afford their addiction. Economic crimes could drastically reduce if illicit drugs were legalized due to being easier to buy. Psychopharmacological crime is associated with the crimes that occur due to the drugs themselves. There is no evidence to prove that those under the influence of illicit drugs are more likely to act out aggressively and violently. According to Hughes Act from the article Legalizing Drugs, these drugs tend to have the opposite effect. Their psychopharmacological properties cause users to become passive. It's alcohol that is the main cause for psychopharmacological crime, but yet it's legal. And in this chart, you can see that alcohol is the biggest drug that causes harm to others. There's not enough of a correlation between illicit drugs and crime to have a good enough reason to criminalize it. The last thing to bring attention to when debating the legalization of drugs is being able to tax it. The black markets make a big profit through the buying and selling of illicit drugs. Those drugs, if legalized, could be taxed and the money could benefit everyone. The money can go towards education, the military, road construction, and so much more. So just think about the money that these black markets make that don't benefit us economically. Also, it's important to look at the amount of money we spend on the drug crime enforcement laws. Legalizing drugs can be an economic gain for us. In conclusion, legalizing drugs would be beneficial in getting rid of drug cartels, finding a solution to drug crime, and being able to tax it. Illegal drugs are no different than the legal drugs. They're all drugs and shouldn't be looked at differently. So if we're going to criminalize drugs because of their harmful effects, then we should criminalize all drugs.